Good evening. We're going to call our meeting to order. That sounded a little hollow, but we'll go with it. Today is Wednesday, June the 27th. This is the recess session of the Nags Head Board of Commissioners. I'd like to welcome everybody and call the meeting to order. Our first item is the adoption of the agenda.
Mayor, motion to adopt the agenda with removing the discussion of itinerant merchants.
And we're going to remove that to our first meeting in July,
Yes.
July 11th. Okay.
That's
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Our next item is audience response. This is the time that we set aside for the public to come and speak to the Board of Commissioners. Would anybody care to come up and speak? Sir? If you'll give us your name and your address.
I'm Richard Murphy, 8817 South Old Oregon Inlet Road. I want to thank the mayor and fellow commissioners, for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. And first of all, I want to apologize for not being in the two previous meetings and being involved in the budget process. I had a son graduating from high school and enrolling in Auburn, and he was going after a number of scholarships, which he was successfully have acquired. And so I've been a little bit busy, but yet not to diminish what we've done with the budget, and I know you guys have spent a lot of hours in it. I know that Cliff has spent a number of hours in it. There's a number of several things that stuck out in my mind about the budget, and I have listened to the tapes of the previous meetings, and I've looked at the budget fairly extensively. Without getting lost in the numbers, there's just a couple of things that kind of were really glaring at me. First of all, we got a windfall of $1.6 million, that we don't necessarily have to spend when we get something like that, with our tax revenue. It's always scary, when you get that kind of money based on what our tax increases in the last year. Knowing that all the cities, Kildare Hills, Duck, Southern Shores, they're all going to increase their taxes. So our portion is going to be less next year. So we're going to have to be prepared for that. So if we start adding in line items that are reoccurring, such as personnel, salary increases, then we're going to have to either make adjustments to offset those in the following years. We just need to be aware of that. Historically, town managers, one of the measuring sticks for determining their salaries has been a budget. Whatever the budget number is, the higher the budget for a town, the more justification a town manager has for having a salary increase. That's not the only justification, but obviously that's one thing. So you guys as commissioners need to keep that in the back of your mind at all times. And whether or not we have justification for the number of people that have been added to the budget that have been proposed. We've got a town engineer that was part-time, and now Cliff, our town manager, is proposing to make him full-time. Now, there again, if that position is necessary and is something that the city needs, then we should have a full-time engineer. But if we do that, then a position like that should be re-advertised. There's a lot of engineers available now that are out of work. You can get some very high qualified engineers now, especially when it comes to civil, mechanical engineers. When I visited Auburn, one thing they said, my son is going to be in computer science, software engineering. They said their job placement is 96.7%. Civil, mechanical, it was 46 and 47%. So there's a lot of people graduating with engineering degrees that can't find a job and they're doing other things. So I'm just saying, if we're going to add a position like that, perhaps it should be something that's advertised, you know, rather than take a temp and turn it into it. In addition to that, if there's a line item contingency, which we've spent a lot of money in the past on consulting engineers to hire as needed, that line item should be removed from the budget. If we're making this a full-time position, then we shouldn't have a line item in the budget, you know, for contingencies for engineer, if we've got a full-time engineer. The deputy fire chief, I think that's something that we need. I support that for one. Police lieutenant, I support that. I'm unfamiliar with the maintenance technician that is proposed for public works, but I would assume that Ralph has perused that enough that, you know, he knows what we need. One item that was glaring is we proposed a change in grade for our human resources manager. In the past, my past experience with both municipalities and federal government is that any time an individual increases the pay rate as much as 2 levels, 3 or 4, there has to be some extreme justification for that kind of increase, you know, unless the responsibilities have grossly changed for that employee. Don't know the particulars about that. That's just something that kind of jumped out at me, and there's very, very few municipalities allow those kind of salary increases, you know, those many grade levels, unless there is some justification. One item that I think we did not address that we should address, and that is development of our beach accesses. We have a number of beach accesses now that are either unpaved, we don't have parking lots, there's just basically a bench out there, you know, and a walk-through path, you know. But one thing that Mr. Ratzenberg said in the last meeting, you know, was, hey, we need to develop every beach access that we possibly can so that we've got people got access to our wonderful beaches now, you know. And there's a number of them in South Nags Head that continue to just be grown up and everything, you know, that we could have some additional parking, and we should do that. So far as the access path in South Nags Head, there's a number. I've seen 3 people fall this year, this spring, because of the bumps where there's asphalt driveways meeting concrete, you know, and they've poured a little bit too much asphalt, and there's a big hump, you know, each one, there's some dangerous things ready to happen. Now, you may recall that I gave the commissioners a list of driveways in South Nags Head that did not have a line of vision, you know, for the multi-use path, meaning that cars pull out across the path in order to look both ways. Those accesses, to my knowledge, nothing's been done. I walked the entire South Nags Head the other day and looked specifically at the driveway numbers that I had given, and the problem is exactly the same as it was, you know, 8 or 9 months ago. That's something we need to look at, because whether it's private property or whether it's municipal property, if we don't access that, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen, you know, and thrown at the city. There's at least 40 items there. I've looked at a couple of access steps, and I will give this to Ralph and Dave, beach access steps that do not meet our code. The height limitations on the steps are not consistent, and I will, rather than address that here, but I'll give that to them. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Murphy. Anybody else care to speak to the board? Anyone at all? Seeing no one, we're going to close our public comment period. Our next item is the consent agenda.
Motion to adopt is presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is hopeful adoption of a fiscal year 12-13 budget ordinance. Sir?
Thank you. The ordinance that we have before you, recommending budget ordinance for fiscal year coming up 12-13. We've got general fund expenditures and revenues at $17,329,109. Total water fund revenues at $2,817,733. Stormwater revenues and expenditures at $379,693. Total budget fiscal year $20,902,000. Got that. Tax rate remains the same at .1775 townwide. Additional municipal service district tax for the payment of the special obligation bond of .16 cents, unchanged tax. One thing that I would like to ask the board to consider, concern that I've expressed about since this was presented with Blackman Street and Avalon Street, would like to ask the board to consider adding an additional $50,000 to come from fund balance to have those two accesses replaced as soon as possible after the season, regardless of award of the CAMA grant that we've applied for. We hope to hear from that CAMA grant in July, which is an 80-20 match. But I will, if we don't receive that grant, we'll be asking you to fund that project. So I just would like to ask the board to consider funding that, making that allocation at this time.
You're looking at that as being just an additional piece of fund balance?
Yes, sir.
For $50,000. Okay. We had a number of items that I know that we discussed as we went through. Can you take us through some of those, if you will?
When we last left the last budget workshop, what I had proposed and what's been brought before you is capital expenditure of $351,206. Of course, that would be at 401,206 if we add the 50,000. Staffing, additional staffing of $337,553, and that includes the 4 positions: the police lieutenant, the deputy fire chief, the public facilities maintenance worker, and the project engineer, along with the 2 grade and step changes for the human resources director and the senior accountant. We have the 2% COLA at $113,249, and then again, this of that $998,000 increase shared that we're getting that goes to the general fund. $196,000 of that to balance. It would be $146,000 if the access is added, and that makes up those additional revenues. The board discussed some of the other items. We've got the we are planning in this budget ordinance to pay back $300,000 from the general fund to the water fund and the budget ordinance, I believe, states a policy of payback of $300,000 a year until that debt is paid off. We have also transferred back for admin oversight $115,000 from the water fund to the general fund. We have left, I believe the other items were that we have left $30,000 for some work to be done to work on tightening up and the town ordinances. And we have not, but can add back, prepared to add back the $8,000 for the part-time person to serve as enforcement on the beach in the summer months from May to Labor Day.
Questions or comments for Cliff?
As you proposed, Cliff, this leaves a balance of what in the fund balance, percentage-wise and money-wise, as you proposed it this
Yes,
evening?
yes, ma'am. The fiscal year end 6/30/13, projected fund balance would be $6,894,779,000. If, as the board has said, if we exclude the bond debt from projected expenditures, it leaves us with 53.47% fund balance. And that's slightly higher. It would be actually 59.54% if we exclude from the expenditures, bond debt, and the interfund transfers. So that would meet the fund balance policy that the board, that we'll bring before you to adopt at your July 11th meeting of 5 million or 52%, whichever is greater.
Other comments, questions?
Mr. Murphy, thank you for your comments. I share some of your concerns that you have brought forward this evening. One of the things I've talked about in some of the budget workshops is if we have a full-time engineer, we need to cut out that line item and let our engineer do those things that we've been contracting out. I have a concern about this budget being somewhat top-heavy with executive positions. And I also have a concern about that wide disparity about jumping so many grades and steps. I appreciate your comment about our beach accesses. I do think we need to keep them up, and that leads to what the manager said. Did I hear you correct that you were talking about repairing those access that you asked us to include money for after the season?
Yes, ma'am. We have recently, at Blackman Street, have done a pretty extensive repair to prepare ourselves to get through this summer season.
What have you done at Abalone?
Other than securing steps on the ocean side, I'm not sure if, Ralph, if we've done much more than that.
Yeah, we showed up the steps that are going up to the access. We put in a whole new walkway that goes from the parking lot to the steps. That's where some of the boards, actually the nails were rusted off, and some of the boards were popping up. All of them been replaced. The handrails have been replaced, and on the ocean side, there was some shoring up of some of the steps on that side also.
Okay. My question was more is, will it wait if we're being asked to appropriate money? Should we wait until after the season, or should we do it?
I feel pretty safe in saying we can wait with Blackman. I'm going to ask Ralph about Abalone.
Yeah, I think we can wait with Abalone with all the work that we did this week to it, that we can wait on Abalone. A lot of the complaints coming from Blackman Street is not the condition of the walkway. It's basically trying to get up the dune to the stairs, because the dune has basically taken over the stairs. So that's where most of the complaints are coming from Blackman Street. We shoveled off some of the stairs to make it a little bit easier. Like I said, Abalone Street was in more of repair to the access to the walkway and to the stairs itself. Last year, we replaced the stairs on Blackman Street on the west side of it and did extensive work to the walkway and stuff like that. But that's where the complaints are coming from, Blackman Street. And even if we rebuild it and move those stairs out, it's still going to be kind of tough getting up that dune to those stairs.
All right. Thank you.
Comment?
Sure. I'm ready to make a motion. Okay, somebody's got to make a motion.
Move to adopt a
proposed budget 2012-2013 as presented by the manager.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. I had heard some sentiment for adding that 8,000 back in. That wasn't necessarily my sentiment, but I did hear some of that sentiment.
I had forgotten about that. I would be amenable to that. I just cannot support the budget as presented with all the positions in it, because I think that's taken it's adding reoccurring money using temporary money.
And what did I hear on the positions on this budget? Does this budget include the police lieutenant and the vice chief?
Yes, sir.
We have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Any further discussion, y'all?
I can't support the budget as presented, Mayor. I feel that we are kind of out of sync with a number of items, and while they may be small in monetary, in dollars, they are out there. And I'll just reiterate them. I'm sure you all are as tired of hearing them as I'm tired of saying them, but I don't feel that it is appropriate for us to spend $30,000 for the ordinance cleanup. We kind of created those ordinances, and I think that there's probably no one any better that can understand what we've created than those who work with them. So to ask an outside company to come in and clean up what we have, I think is a waste of our town tax money. I've tried to think back. I even asked Commissioner Cahoon. I don't recall a time that we've ever moved some persons in step and grade any more than 5%. And I believe those were in the good years. I don't feel that the added duties that Cliff has been gracious enough to give us for the two positions warrant anything near the original 10%, and I think now it's a 7.5% increase. I think that is segmenting two persons in his whole entire staff that it's not warranted, in my opinion. And I also feel that we are the project engineer, the project, what are we calling that position, is a project engineer. If we are going from a part-time to a full-time position, I also feel that some of those duties perhaps that were directed to the HR person might be more in hand to this full-time person. And speaking on what Mr. Murphy said, I do not feel that we can totally eliminate the line item for engineering fees, because it's my understanding that this person is not a structural engineer. And I stand corrected if I'm...
No, there will still be some expense for engineering, namely surveying,
Right.
would be the major expense.
I'm sure Mr. Murphy also knows that of that 1.6, that a certain amount of that money does stay in the beach project. And I think that's over $500,000, Cliff, is it?
Ma'am.
Or more than that. So we do have close to $1 million to work with, and I would, again, be very remiss if I did not say that a lot of that money should not be reoccurring monies, because, again, our neighbors they're forced to increase their taxes due to the imbalance that the Nags Head Beach Nourishment Project has created. However, saying that, I spoke to two different commissioners just recently from two different municipalities, and they applaud us for taking that step. So they are not blaming us for their revenue shortfall. It's just the way that is dictated. So the positions, I did support the position in the fire department. I did not originally support the police lieutenant until I was told that that would be a person that would have an 8-hour shift and that it would be a working person on duty. So when I did talk to Chief Brinkley, I am concerned that if we delay, we're going to wind up next year having 2 more positions to add at a time when we have reevaluation, where we may then really be faced with a severe tax increase. So my suggestion is to add Public Works. There's no doubt in my mind that Public Works has been short forever. I would like to eliminate the steps, give everyone the COLA, put the project engineer full-time, hire the person in fire, and put off the police person until next year, and put back the ambassador on the beach for the $8,000. And include those 2 beach accesses, because I read those in the capital improvement, and I went up and looked at both of them, and I will tell you they are not good. And if we continue to postpone all of the maintenance that we need at all of those places, we'll never catch up. So those are the reasons that I cannot support the budget as Commissioner Romali has made the motion to do so.
I will say that I share some of Commissioner Cahoon, Commissioner Sadler's concerns, and Mr. Murphy's as well. I feel like we are using too much of that occupancy and sales tax revenue that will not be there, won't all be there next year. I was fine with using it on capital projects, one-time things, but adding the number of positions that we're adding, I have a hard time supporting. Further comments, further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, like sign.
Right.
The motion fails 3-2. Do we have an alternative?
We're prepared. We may need a recess, but we're prepared for whatever the next motion is.
Let me propose that we look at a budget without the police lieutenant, without the fire vice chief, including the 30,000 in planning, including the 8,000 for the education/enforcement person, and allocating, I think, about 7.5% on the 7.5–8% on the
2 positions.
the grade steps, the 2 positions, and let you allocate that how you wish to allocate that.
And that, I'm sorry, what positions were included?
The project manager position and the public works.
Right. Okay. I think we can provide that, another ordinance with those changes.
Comments, discussion?
I appreciate the, I mean, let's just go ahead and get through this. I mean, you already called me and told me what the vote was going to be, so let's just go ahead. I'll withdraw my my motion anyway. I'm not going to support it. I'm not going to support yours. I don't believe in trying to do more with less. You've been doing it for the last 5 years. I do appreciate you calling, everybody ahead of time and let me know what the vote was going to be. That you had support to do away, eliminate those positions that are needed.
Cliff, 5 minutes?
Yes,
or-
sir.
Okay. We're going to have a recess for 5 minutes. we're going to come out of recess and take another try at this. Cliff, will you run us through?
Yes, sir. This ordinance that's before you now, it includes everything that, what's different about this one and the one that you just voted on was this ordinance does not include the police lieutenant, it does not include the deputy fire chief, and it adds back the employee to help educate people on the beach, not as an enforcement position, as I said earlier, but it is someone to educate the public on our ordinances and rules. It adds that position back, and those are the three changes.
And your, sorry, the step increases?
The step increases for the, it includes a maximum, it would allow for a maximum of a 3-step increase for the human resources director and the senior accountant.
And what does that translate on percentages? Is that about?
A maximum of 7.5%. Now, that does include the 2% COLA. The grade and steps are adjusted for every position by 2%, so that all positions fall into that grade and step because they're on 2.5 steps. So they all need to be adjusted equally.
So for clarification, Cliff, with the 2% COLA, all positions increase by 2%, and then these 2 positions would increase again another 7.5%, making a total of 9.5%.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Right. That's what's allotted. Now, if the board directs me that no more than 2.5%, no more than 5%, then we'll back those steps out.
Going to have to do a lot of backing out for me, Mayor. Hear from the rest of the board.
Would you like a motion? I make a motion that based on the budget ordinance that we just discussed, that it be adopted with one change, which is to limit the reclassifications or changes in steps to 5% instead of 7.5%.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a motion on the floor, and I'll second that motion. Is there further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
No.
The motion passes 3-2. I think I heard 3-2.
I want to see a show of hands.
Show of hands. 4?
Oh.
Against? Okay. 3-2. Thank y'all. I know this has been a difficult process, and not everybody got what they wanted, and we will try and make it a better and smoother process for the next year. Cliff, thank you for all your hard work and going back and forth.
Thank you very much.
Our next item is F, items referred to the town attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to inform the board that a week ago today, we learned that the Fisher plaintiffs had filed a notice of appeal with the Supreme Court and a petition for discretionary review of the decision from the Court of Appeals. You will recall that the decision of the Court of Appeals had been to uphold the trial court's dismissal of their lawsuit that was designed to enjoin the town from condemning the easements needed for the beach nourishment project. The Court of Appeals had decided that case back in March. But in any event, the Fisher plaintiffs have now sought Supreme Court review of that. And as we've discussed before, an appeal of right exists when there's a dissent from the Court of Appeals or a constitutional question is presented. In this particular case, the Court of Appeals was unanimous. There was no dissent, so the only basis for an appeal of right to the Supreme Court would be that a substantial constitutional question is involved. We disagree. We don't think any constitutional question is presented in this particular case, and so we're going to be filing a response, which is due Monday, to their notice of appeal and to their request for discretionary review. Ultimately, the Supreme Court's decision will be whether in its discretion it wants to review any of the issues in that case and we'll just have to wait and see what they ultimately decide. But that's the latest in that particular litigation. Other than that, in Sansota 1, we are still in the process of working on the appeal. This afternoon, I got an email from the lead attorney on handling the appeal for the Sansota plaintiffs, asking for 4 extra days to file their appellate brief, and I've explained that I don't oppose that as long as we get a similar extension on our due date. So that would put their brief being due on July the 10th, and so we're waiting anxiously to see what issues they're going to raise with the Court of Appeals in that particular case. And on Sansota 2, we have still not gotten a decision from the federal judge in that case, and really aren't that surprised. I don't expect to get one until later this summer at the earliest anyway. So that's where we are with the various litigation matters that are pending. And no word from the Supreme Court on whether it's going to review the Cherry Inc. decision.
Any expectation on time frame there?
Well, it's hard to say. Unlike the U.S. Supreme Court, which seems to sort of schedule when it's going to issue its opinions, if you've been listening to the news lately, the North Carolina Supreme Court doesn't really do that. They tend to issue opinions and decisions on these kinds of requests for discretionary review about once a month or every 5 weeks. We filed our notice of appeal and request for discretionary review in April before the April 13th, and April the 13th was the last time that they issued any opinions until last Thursday. They went almost 2 months before they issued another round of opinions, so it's kind of hard to tell when they might do things. But I would say that we may hear as early as sometime in the middle to latter part of July, but it's just hard to say.
Commissioner Grant?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
Does our North Carolina Supreme Court meet year-round, or does it just meet a few months a year?
It
And I know
meets,
that probably should.
no, that's a good question. That they tend to hold court during sessions. However, these kinds of administrative things they may be able to do even when they're not holding arguments. The Supreme Court may, but some folks think that there's a less likelihood that you're going to get decisions on anything during the summer, but they tend to continue to issue opinions during the year. Sometimes it's based on things they've already decided, and it's just a matter of finalizing the opinion. So those still come out during the course of the year.
Thank you very much.
The answer.
Items referred to in presentations from the town manager.
Because of the recent events of the rain and stormwater and some concerns that we've had expressed to us about fill, I wanted to, and the board had a discussion at your June 6th commissioners meeting and asked staff to look at revisit fill, our fill ordinance, and some things that we might be able to do. And I just wanted to bring the board up to speed on where we are. Staff's looking at both the stormwater ordinance and the sedimentation and erosion control rules to bring forward some recommendations to the planning board in August and September. Staff's also working with the county regarding a joint public education campaign and a workshop for home builders and developers about the effects, what best practice may be. The board's familiar with the Albemarle Ecological Field Study Group. We're fortunate again this year to have a upper-level college student that we're hoping will be dedicated to stormwater issues in town and to assist with that public education. And at the board's recommendation sometime back, we've asked that the state floodplain mapping program do a workshop here in town or in the county to look at flood mitigation, use of fill in flood hazard areas, and what their process is for updating the flood maps, and we expect that to happen in September. There's a lot of things that staff's working on. They're keenly aware of the issues. Very appreciative of the homeowner that brought to our attention a lot that was in fact being overfilled. Staff immediately went out and were able to get that work stopped. The contractor's going to come in and get his engineered stormwater plan for that lot. So thanks to that property owner for bringing that to our attention. And staff welcomes those types of calls about those concerns so that we can address those. The Vista Colony project has brought is just about finished. They were this week, or excuse me, today, we're doing the hydro seeding. That's a project that's been a long time coming and a long time wrapping up for those homeowners. They've had to endure quite a lot of interruption for that construction. But that's an example of a neighborhood, one of our earliest neighborhoods that was not constructed with stormwater provisions, and you can see the effects and that such a project takes on with the neighborhood. So we're trying to amend that project as we go along to be as little as an inconvenience as possible without compromising the effects and the need for that project to work. This heavy rain we had here recently, it appears that the project's working effectively. There was some good timing because of that rain, because we were able to see where the spots that were compromised that may need more fill or more dressing as they finish up. So I just wanted to bring the board up to speed that this isn't something that we got hit by that huge amount of rain and we're going to move on from it. We're actually trying to learn from it and correct some things and bring some measures before the board to hopefully ease some of the concern that we have. The other thing I would like, it's that time of year, and I guess it's fitting that we'll talk about fireworks after the adoption of the budget, but ask the fire chief to come up and brief the board on our preparations for July the 4th.
Evening, Mayor, Board. Thank you for permitting me to bring you up to speed on what I feel is a real cornerstone event here in Nags Head, our annual 4th of July fireworks. I think there's been just a few occasions where we didn't do the fireworks, so we're really glad that we're able to present that again for the community, and it's going to be a great event. Before I get into the necessary details, I'm going to ask that Roberta bring up or reprise a segment of YouTube video from our 4th of July 2011 finale, and so we get to see a little bit about what we're going to expect this year and just better. Uh-oh. Well, it's well received and people just enjoy the event. Thank goodness it's at the end of a pier over the ocean. Once again, the town of Nags Head will host the annual Independence Day fireworks on July 4th at 9:25 p.m. on the Nags Head Fishing Pier. The pier is located at milepost 11 on South Virginia Dare Trail, for those of you who might not know. Zambelli International will oversee the pyrotechnics display, and the town looks forward to the excitement and beauty of this fantastic community gathering. The town of Nags Head wishes as well to express its sincere gratitude to the Outer Banks Visitors Bureau, Andy and Lovey McCann, and the entire staff of the Nags Head Fishing Pier for generously agreeing to co-host this event. And they really do bend over backwards to help us out every year. This year, nearly 3,000 shot shells will be deployed on July 4th in an amazing myriad of colors, pinwheels, explosions, and streaming blossoms of light that is sure to astound the community. The fireworks extravaganza will last approximately 25 minutes, and we suggest that people who want to come and observe be in place at least an hour before the display. The weather is expected to cooperate this year, and those viewing the event should see the fireworks with a backdrop of the moon to the east, so it should be pretty fantastic. In the unlikely chance that inclement weather postpones the event, the rain date for the display is Thursday, July 5th. Parking near the fireworks display site will be directed by the Nags Head Police Department. And area safety operations will be managed by Nags Head Fire, Police, and Ocean Rescue staff. The Town Public Works Department will help transport supplies out to the end of the pier and provide cleanup services after the show. In all, this production involves over 70 staff in the planning, setup, response, and recovery after the show. I'd like to remind the public that those attending the show are encouraged to park east of US Highway 158, South Croatan Highway, and enter the viewing area at one of the town's northern beach accesses. Please use extreme caution while attempting to cross the roadways. Keep control of any children that you bring with you, and remember that the personal use of fireworks in Nags Head is specifically prohibited and illegal. At the conclusion of the fireworks, spectator, pedestrian, and vehicular traffic exiting the area will be directed and controlled by Nags Head police officers. Jockey's Ridge State Park is another ideal spot for viewing the fireworks. The park will be open late July 4th to accommodate visitors. Please call the park at 441-7132 for more information. Those with additional questions about the July 4th fireworks display can access this information at the town homepage, www.nagsheadnc.gov, or call the town hall at 252-441-5508. We encourage everyone to come to Nags Head and enjoy a great fireworks display. And happy July 4th to y'all. Have any questions?
Any questions for the chief?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We look forward to the display.
It's going to be a good one.
That's all.
Thank you very much, sir. Commissioners' agenda, we've got mobile message boards. Did you want to discuss that this evening?
Briefly,
Okay,
if
please.
that's okay. I keep seeing a mobile truck with mobile messaging going up and down the highway in Nags Head, which I believe is in violation of our sign ordinance. And I'm concerned about how long it takes for NOV to work and what are the steps that we can take to have our ordinances enforced.
Cliff, can you
Yes.
speak to the NOV process and
We-
what's happened so far?
We have issued a notice of violation for that. I believe that particular vehicle that Commissioner Kahuna's speaking of, it is in violation of Town Code Section 48-7. What it says in this NOV is that, looking for, I think there's, let's make sure I get this right. If it's not corrected, a second citation shall incur a civil penalty of maximum of $50 a day, minimum of $50 to a maximum of $50 for each day that the violation reoccurs. What happens, or what's happened in the past when we issue these civil penalties is we give the offender the opportunity to correct it. If they don't, as it says, we'll issue a minimum or a $50 or maximum of $500 a day until it ceases. Then at some point, we have to seek legal counsel, legal representation to get an order for the penalty to cease, and end up going to court on some occasions to get a court order, and then the civil penalty is paid. And it can take some time. John, have I summarized that correctly?
I think you have. I think, I believe in this particular case, there's also a right of appeal to the Board of Adjustments from the issuance of the notice of violation, and so that process needs to run itself. I think this person has also retained counsel, the last I'd heard. Regardless of what happens at the Board of Adjustments level, either party, either the town or the alleged violator, have a right of review in Superior Court. But those are all the steps that need to be exhausted in order to enforce the ordinance.
A question. In the meantime, is this violation continuing daily?
I haven't, you know, we can only cite it after I haven't seen it. I'm sure that it, you know, the offender has made it clear that he feels he has the legal right to operate this mobile message board in the state right away, and he continues to do so. If it's reported that we see him, we'll continue to cite him. He has indicated that he will appeal, but has not officially done so yet.
It came to my mind again today when I saw it on 158, so that's why I asked the question again.
So is there a time frame, Cliff, or does this just kind of continue on? You waiting for his attorney, he's waiting for you to
No, I
file
believe
again?
they have 30 days to issue the notice of appeal.
Okay.
There is no definitive time in which we act to get the payment of those civil penalties. I guess it's once they reach a point where we feel like they've it's obvious that they're not going to obey obey the notice, then we'll pursue it, and it appears that we may have to in this case.
I think also in terms of the timing, if I'm not mistaken, in this case, notices of violation were issued, but they were not issued to the correct address, and so they had to, once they found out that they had not sent them to the right address, they had to reissue those.
That's correct.
And that has led to some delays. So it's not, it may appear that nothing's happened for a long period of time. I think that's in part because of that delay. But I had some dialogue with Mr. Allen the other day about that. I believe he's got the right address, right corporate name of the business in issue.
There's not a way to cease and desist?
I don't think that, well, like seeking injunctive relief, I don't think the town can get an injunction, a preliminary injunction, before it has established that a violation has occurred. Once the appeal through the Board of Adjustments has been exhausted and/or an appeal to the Superior Court, if one is made, once that series of appeals has run its course, if the town's notice of violation is upheld, the town's remedy at that point would be injunctive relief. But I don't believe you can get injunctive relief on a preliminary basis until the violation has been established through that process.
Thank you.
I have a question, if you don't mind. So when does the applicant apply to get on the Board of Adjustments agenda?
They have 30 days to appeal, and would be sometime around the middle of July that 30 days expires.
So immediately that the new violation that's gone to the correct address expires, I just want to make sure I understand. If that expires and they haven't, if they've decided on not the course of a Board of Adjustment, what does the town take any action at that time?
And we,
Or do we just leave it in limbo?
No, I think at that time we'd be in a position to go ahead and seek an order from the court
Okay.
at that
Right.
juncture.
Okay. And I would assume that we would do this?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think I've got it.
It took me a while.
I've never seen a sign change. I've seen him drive through with a sign, but I've seen it change.
It changes. It changes on 4 sides, actually.
Have you seen a change in Nags Head?
Yes.
Have you?
There's actually 2 that I've seen. One that is scrolling, and then the other one is the McDonald's sign. And it actually looks just like a billboard on a flatbed. And haven't seen that one in a while, but that's the other.
Because that's the only time he's in violation, right, is when the sign is actually changing.
No,
I think there's a violation when when it's a mobilized sign as well.
I don't know if there's a court of land that'll uphold that. What are you gonna do with all the trucks that run up and down with the logo on the side of them? That's a waste of our time and money. Another ordinance needs to be changed.
I mean, I think the justification or the rationale behind it was like a rolling billboard and was off-site advertising.
If they were moving, I mean, if the sign was moving or something like that, then it's a violation, yeah.
That's what it's doing when I typically see it. And the one that typically it scrolls to is a business that is new.
The way we've interpreted this is that if it's operating solely for the purpose of advertising, then it's a mobile message board, and vehicular signs are illegal. And that if it's a Subway or a Coke truck that's delivering and coming through town, then we've not enforced those. But if its sole purpose of existence is for advertisement, then we treat it as a violation.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Anything else? Nothing from me. Move to adjourn. Don't you want to go through the rest of the agenda?
I'm over it. Go ahead.
Sorry. Commissioner Seven?
I would like to thank all the staff that'll be working on the 4th of July again for another year to give the people here something that we so enjoyed and missed when we didn't have it. But most of all, I want to, after I thank the Tourism Board for the money, I want to thank Andy and Lovey. If it were not for them, if it were not for the Nags Head Pier, I do not know where we would have the fireworks. And they just have stepped up to the plate year after year. I don't know why they do it, but I really appreciate them doing it. And Mayor, you and I met yesterday with the other members of the Windmill Point Committee. Are you going to update the board on your agenda with that?
I wasn't planning to, but if you would carry on, you're welcome.
Just brief. We did meet. We're working on trying to finalize, now that we have, the town of Nags Head has passed the text amendment that will allow a public event to be held at the public event site rather than as a crowd gathering event. We are now pulling together some do's and don'ts, can and can't, fees, all of the guts that go together to make up how you can get permission to use the site, working on some field for parking. Eventually we'll have some electric and bathrooms, and it's the beginning of a process. And actually we are going tomorrow to hear the final phase 1, 2, 3, 4 from Erie, and hope that the board will endorse the long-range gradual planning of what will be on the site. And I understand that there will be also a meeting, in case there's anybody here in the audience that would like to go. It's tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock. The Killam Hills Commissioners Room. They'll be presenting that results of their survey and their wishes and desires. So, and it's coming together really in a nice package where it's going to be phased in, I think, so that the community can see what's going to work there and how it's going to work and how it can evolve eventually into more and more accommodation of other events. So I'm really excited. And that's all I had.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, it's good.
Is everybody else done?
Susie's after.
You know I don't have anything.
I've got one thing under my agenda, if I may, and that's debris pickup. We had some concerns expressed about debris pickup, and it's a similar situation with notice of violation. I would like the board to think about how Cliff can run us through. It's basically the same process. We are trying to enforce that ordinance where we say, no, we're not going to pick it up after a certain point in time, and encourage people to abide by that. I'd like the board to think about how comfortable they are at the enforcement process with that. The alternative is to just pick it up. And that has been what we've done a number of times in the past because, frankly, it saves time and money.
There are two options we can go by, and the mayor's absolutely right. It's easier and quicker just to pick it up, because as much time as you spend talking about it and trying to get people to do it themselves, you've almost spent less time and money just to pick it up. But then you never get people conditioned that come April 30th, they can't put stuff out in this right-of-way anymore. In South Nags Head, it's much more difficult because not every house fronts a town right-of-way. And if you ride through South Nags Head today, you're going to see debris along 1243 that I wouldn't know who to issue the violation to, because it's not directly in front of a house. It's much easier in front of the neighborhoods. we can narrowly define some of this debris that's left in the right-of-way as a nuisance. If it's detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare, if it's likely to catch fire, if it's likely to have rodents or rats or disease-carrying creatures, then we can issue them a notice of violation, but then they still have a period of time to remedy it themselves, which I think for a notice of violation, it's just like it is for removing a house off the beach, it's 15 days. So it could conceivably sit there for 15 days after we've correctly cited them, at which time we can then pick it up ourselves, and then we can charge them the cost that it cost us our time and equipment and manpower to pick that up. Whether or not we can then attach a house, a lien, collect it just like we do taxes. Again, that's more staff time in trying to collect that money back. The other way that we've done it in the past is to issue, similar to the vehicle operating illegally in the right-of-way, is issuance of civil penalties. They have 10 days to correct that, and then we have to, if we cannot, the way we can collect those civil penalties is the same way. We have to get a court order to get those payment, and at some point, you're spending more money than you're collecting.
But I think that the concern that I heard was how long does it stay out there? And what I'm hearing Cliff say is that after we've identified it as being out there, 15 days is the max. We pick it up after that 15-day period.
Mayor, could I ask Cliff to tell the board the reason, the original reason that we stopped picking up? First of all, we stopped picking up the household, mattresses, broken chairs, everything. But we continued to pick up the brush,
Yeah.
tree limbs, cuttings, whatever. We picked all of that up through the summer until last year. Last year, we decided not to pick up anything after April 3rd. What was the reason?
It was either last year or the year before. The ordinance, the town ordinance has always said residential collection is by appointment from October 1st to April 30th. All other times you have to remove it yourselves. We weren't following that practice because we were able to, with the staff and the manpower we had, and I guess the direction from the board at that time was pick it up, and we did, but we don't have, we're not able to keep up. We're not able to pick it up as quickly. It's sitting there longer now because we just don't have the staff and the manpower anymore. So we went back to enforcing the ordinance.
Ralph, can we use convicts pick up trash?
No, they can't operate our equipment. They can't.
I mean, can they ride?
They can ride along.
So if we had a volunteer to drive the truck, we'd get a couple convicts to do that if they're on the work release.
If we had a driver. I mean, with the knuckle boom,
I'm just,
yeah, I mean, with the knuckle boom truck, you really don't need anybody else to ride along with them. It's just trying to free up time to go ahead out and do it. The biggest problem is that we find is now that with so many people using landscapers and stuff, that the landscapers know that if you put it out in Nags Head, they're going to pick it up. And so that's what we run into a lot is that, the landscapers put it out there and it just sits out there. If you confront some of them, they just say, well, I'm not the landscaper, I'm just a friend helping them trim up the bushes. And if you ask the homeowner, that's what they'll tell you too, that's just my friend. So, I mean, and that's the problem. Like I said, for the last 3 years, the amount of brush that we pick up is just unbelievable. I tell the guys all the time, for a place that doesn't have many trees, I don't know where all this stuff comes from. But
Ralph, thank you.
that's-
What I'd like to ask the board to do is consider what we're doing right now, and if you want to keep following that same process. It goes back to enforcing the ordinance or saving the time and money and just picking it up. So let's think on that. I'm not asking for a decision on that this evening, but
Well, I hope when we do have this discussion that Cliff has got an answer to just picking it up, because obviously from what Ralph's saying, we don't have the manpower. And I think I heard that from Cliff. So it's either hire someone else or whatever. But I'm just saying, you know, it's great to discuss it. I say either enforce it or get it off the books. But at this point in time, I don't think that the board can swallow another extra person at Public Works, not after this evening. So I just leave it for Cliff to bring us an answer to the pick it up all the time.
One other thing I want to add is the board gets, among several complaints I'm sure you get, around the end of April, I'm sure you get a lot of complaints about, I called 2 weeks ago and it's still not picked up. And that's during the period of time. We can get it, we will pick it up, but we're not going to pick it up maybe as quickly. If we pick it up all the time, in this time of year, it's much more difficult because the guys are working sanitation's working 5 days a week, and they're doing all they can just to pick up the cans. So to add bulk pickup on top of that it's gonna take some time. It's not that we can't, it's just gonna take longer.
Thank you, sir. Any further business? Mayor Pro Tem? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We're adjourned.